Hi everyone, it's Roger here from the What's on Disney Plus podcast. It is episode number 232, and this week me and James are going to be talking about the big change that's been happening within Disney in terms of general entertainment. We're also going to be sharing our thoughts on the new series Fleishman in Trouble, which recently debuted here in the UK on Disney Plus, plus also Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. But before we do any of that, quick bit of housekeeping. If you haven't already done so, make sure you do hit that subscribe button here on YouTube or on the audio platforms. Go check us out over at what's on at disneyplus.com, like, favorite, all the rest of it to keep up with the latest news. Okay, so here's a quick few bits of news that's happened throughout the week. So we've had a number of new trailers released. We saw Prom Pact, which is going to be coming out at the end of March. It's going to be debuting on the Disney Channel the day before. So the new trailer, I'm still not entirely sure it's a great idea to have it out on the same day as Doogie Kamealoha MD the second season, because I think having the same stars in a film and a series at the same time seems a little bit over the top. I'm going to be honest, trailer didn't do a lot for me because, again, it's about a prom, and you get to a certain point in your life where you really don't care about teenagers' proms. To be honest, we didn't even do it when I was a kid, when I was at high school. So the idea of that doesn't really do much, and the whole thing of like going off to college and all that. It just feels so stereotypical. It's not aimed at me, so I will watch it, but it's nothing I'm too excited about. A documentary I am looking forward to watching is Finding Michael. That one is going to be coming out on Friday the 3rd, so not too long to wait for that one. That is a documentary that sees Spencer heading off to Everest to kind of find out about his brother who died while climbing it. This one is a British documentary. It finally was confirmed for a US release. We've known about this one for a while, but we weren't sure of the US release until literally yesterday. So at least now we do know. So that's always good to think. But that's one I'm actually really looking forward to. We also got a new trailer for the U2 special, Bono and Bono and also Edge meet David Letterman. I'm getting all my names wrong. So yes, you had Bono and Edge meeting Letterman in Dublin, all coming out on St. Patrick's Day. I'm a U2 fan. I'm looking forward to watching it. I've been listening to ever since they announced this one, I've been listening to the greatest hits albums, and there's going to be a new greatest hits album coming out on the same day. So that's kind of why they're doing it. Again, a little bit more for older viewers like myself and stuff. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to that one. So those were the 3 major new trailers that we got this week. Also, a little bit of an issue for the Marvel Rising The Voices documentary, which is going to have 3 episodes. It was supposed to come out this past week. They've pushed it back to next week now. And they're going to be releasing it over 3 weeks. And it's also going to be on a Tuesday, which I think is a good thing. I think that's definitely the right thing for them to do. By spreading out the releases is good. I'm not sure about it's kind of weird with the documentaries. I do think that releasing documentary series weekly probably would be better than doing this whole binge format. Spread them out a little bit more. I think we're going to see a lot more of this one. But yes, I think that one's going to be interesting how all of this comes together. And we've also seen the press tour continuing for The Mandalorian, because that's only coming up in a few days' time on the 1st of March. I'm really looking forward to that one there. Right, so before I bring James in and we talk about general entertainment, just a quick thank you to our patrons and our YouTube channel members. So a big thank you to Babak. We've also got Paul, Daniel, Aero, Caleb, Red Mars Man, Cody, Jacob. We've also got Darren, Lauren, Sarah, the Juice, and Andrew. And also on YouTube, big thank you and hello to Dana, Jonathan, DJ Frost, Top, Ben, Tim, Chuck, David, Mahmoud. We've also got Raphael, Adam, Ricky, My VCS Still Works, Bina, Joshua, and Martin. So a big thank you to all of you guys. Okay, so let's bring James in now, and now let's talk about our major topic of the week. And that is going to be a big shift in Disney with general entertainment, a big shift in trying to make more money, and just generally what that's going to mean, I think, for like Disney Plus and Hulu going forward. Very kind of like Bob Iger was very much during this latest quarterly results, he was talking about general entertainment is, I can't even think of the word. It was like it's not unique. It's differential or something like that. It's if you have if you take like an FX show, let's say Welcome to Chippendales or Fleishman in Trouble, something like that, right? Is that on Netflix? Is that on Paramount Plus? Is that on Amazon? Could be anywhere, couldn't it? There's not really, it's not a Disney show, it's not Disney. And so I think there's a general thing of he spent a lot of money on 20th Century Studios. And now we're like 4 years in, and maybe it hasn't calmed the way he thought. Or maybe more importantly, he's looking at the budgets of how these series have done and going, we've got all this stuff, but it's really not pulling in what we want it to. So I think we'll look at like movies and we'll look at TV. So we'll split them up. But I think there's going to be a real shift in Disney with general entertainment. He says they aren't getting out of it. They aren't stopping it. So but they're going to curate it more. They're going to be more selective. They're going to be a little bit more picky. I think it does feel like in the last 3 years since they brought it, they have been making and we've talked about it a lot here on the podcast, especially with the international Disney Plus releases, so much stuff, haven't they?
There's been a lot. It's definitely been a huge increase from when Disney Plus first launched, and not counting that first week when the initial content drop, and that first year we were like, all right, what came out this week? Random quiz show, and that was it. That was the show of the week. Whereas now, especially as you said with the UK and European releases, there's just a flood of content coming in, constantly things to talk about.
Yeah, and I think there is that thing of, I think they are probably spending too much, making too much. I think the problem primarily is, especially in the US, they have been making content for FX channel, for ABC channel, for Freeform. They've been making stuff for Hulu and making stuff for National Geographic and ABC. And, each division's making its own little thing. Of course, it all adds up. But when it all ends up on one end, or, for us here in Disney Plus internationally, it all ends up on one plate. It's like, would you like looking at it? It's like, I think like this week here in the UK, new episode of 911, a new episode of Alaska Daily. Internationally as well, we've been getting like Bob's Burgers, Family Guy, we're getting all of that. We're also getting coming up, we got like Grey's Anatomy, Station 19. We've just finished off The Resident. We've just finished off The Walking Dead. We've got like Fleishman in Trouble just came out this past week. We've got a couple of shows coming up, like Unprisoned, and there's another couple of shows dropping. It's like, and some of these are weekly. Weekly, you can go on to Disney Plus, and there will be 10 to 12 general entertainment shows. That would be classes that, you throw in there some National Geographic documentaries, some ABC News documentaries as well, because that all kind of slides into that bucket. That's a lot of stuff, and it's like, yeah, they don't need to be made. If this is all under one, if they only had Disney Plus in the US and they weren't trying to feed Hulu still, they wouldn't have so much. I think they should get rid. I think I wouldn't be at all surprised if they get rid of Freeform. That would be something that might be needed. I think they are going to have to do something and other networks are doing the same, and we're really seeing that shift, and we've been seeing it already with like A Small Light, which is going to be coming to Disney Plus and National Geographic. We're seeing it with some of the other National Geographic shows where things are being shared. There's a real shift of just going, look, we can't keep making this amount of stuff, and it just costs too much.
It costs too much. It does help. A lot of it was originally designed for like television or things like that, and it's really becoming secondary content or secondary releases. Sorry. So it already had a home. Like you can go on to ABC, the channel, and watch Grey's Anatomy or something like that, and it'll pop up there. And okay, yeah, it's a bonus. We get to throw it on Hulu or Disney Plus as well, and so on. But yeah, there is a lot of content that they could probably trim back, which on the other hand, I'm kind of no, it's good having this content because while I may not be interested in Grey's Anatomy, lots and lots of other people are, and it gives them something to watch. And there might be people who are like, I'm not really into Grey's Anatomy, but Fleishman Is In Trouble is my, that is what I like to watch. And so on. And having options is never a bad thing, but of course it costs money and it has to support itself and so on.
Yeah, I think the truth is, it's like anything, isn't it? If they are putting out, say they're putting out 10 to 15 shows a week, and I think they're probably actually more than that, you got to look at it and go, could they put out 8 and could they have a bigger budget? Could they cut back a little bit? Do they need all those different choices? I'm surprised some things like Grey's Anatomy and stuff still go because the cost of it, they cost more as they cost to make. some of the animation shows. Do we need Family Guy, Bob's Burgers, Great North? Do we need 4 or 5 shows dropping a week? A lot of them are still linked to old linear networks, so they have to kind of keep making them. And a normal, so I think this is where we are seeing the shift come in as well of linear and streaming. The idea of like a Hulu original, I think we are going to see a lot less of them. I wouldn't be at all surprised if Hulu goes down to 1 a month or 2 a month. I think we're going to see a big drop off in the same way that they're doing with Marvel and Star Wars, where they're going to drop some more off as a way of cutting back. And I wouldn't be at all surprised as well if 20th Television and ABC merge.
Yeah, although we're talking about probably longer term things here. These are not things that would happen within the next couple of months. They kind of trickle it down. Although they might also just do the, rip off the Band-Aid approach and the whole bunch of stuff is gone. And I do want to be clear, we're not really advocating for that. As I said, I don't want them to be culling, even if it's something I don't want to watch, as long as there are people who are enjoying it, let them have, everyone likes different things. So just because I don't like a particular show doesn't mean that show should cease to exist. But I could think of a couple.
We watched an episode of Back in the Groove last night, which was on Hulu, a dating show where like 40-year-old women, and they've been in a pool with like 25 to 30, like 20 plus year olds. It was dire. And we like dating shows, we like Married at First Sight and like first dates and things like that. But this was just like, we can't watch anymore. So yeah, again, reality and like unscripted stuff does have a place. We do watch some of it. I mean, my wife loves Love Island, but it and then we need that choice. And I think like ABC News Studios putting out documentaries about murders and all kinds of weird stuff that they're doing. That is it's a lot cheaper, but it's like, why, we need choice, and we need that choice. But as Iger said, do we need all of the difference? I think it's more the scripted drama is where they're going to be really cutting back, because that's where it costs. And I think they are looking at it going, look, why are we putting out, if ABC and FX could basically fuel enough general entertainment that they don't need to be making original shows for Hulu/Star.
Right. And we'll have to wait and see how it evolves. But when we're talking about this, it's like, okay, we've got Grey's Anatomy. That's the medical drama. Do we need these other medical dramas? Because that's one of the most popular genres on television outside of like cop dramas and so on. We've got The Simpsons and we've got Bob's Burgers. They basically cover the same space. Yes, there's nuanced differences, but they functionally are covering the same area. Do you need both of them? Obviously, a lot of people are going to push back and go, yes, The Simpsons has this type of comedy. Bob's Burger has this type of comedy. They're not the same, but we're not talking about from a consumer perspective. We're talking about from the CEO perspective or the board perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I've been really enjoying the shows that they've been putting out over the last 2 years. Since the expansion of Star 2 years ago on Disney Plus, it went from the show we checked out on a Wednesday or a Friday when Star Wars or Marvel came out to every night we are checking out to see what to watch, Big Sky, Alaska Daily. Those are the shows where me and my wife, we can watch them together. And it's great having that in Grey's Anatomy and Station. That's 4 shows that we're watching on Disney Plus that are general entertainment, and they're high quality shows. Again, but it's that thing, isn't it, of like long term. It does feel a little bit like some of the things like Bob was saying was a bit like, we spent a lot of money to buy this general entertainment, all these general entertainment franchises, and we're now going to strip it down to bare basics, because it's like they've maybe seen the figures, and also that hoping that they're no longer pushing for subscribers, because when they brought it, I think some of it was to make sure they had enough content for it to keep feeding the system. And now we're looking at it going, well, we can cut back. I mean, like I said, they're not looking at completely getting rid of it, because I mean, there's been some words like, oh, they're going to go back to like, I don't think they can do. I mean, we're seeing with Disney Plus in the US, they are putting more general entertainment things on there. It's still very messy with the whole Hulu situation, but I do wonder if we're going to see less. Maybe not now, but they might do the thing that they've done with Marvel and Star Wars, where if they've got 10 shows in the can, they might spread them out a bit more than they did before.
I actually kind of hope they do in that regard. Don't cut back on the number of shows, just kind of spread it out a bit more. It's also worth remembering that when the Fox deal was going through, this was all before COVID, and COVID really changed the landscape on how streaming was going on because a lot of people got stuck at home, and all of a sudden having streaming content became very, very, very important and accelerated the growth of many different companies, different streaming platforms. Disney Plus, of course, getting a massive boost for during that time. But when they were buying Fox, we didn't know that was coming down the line, and they were looking at that content drought for the first year and bolster it up with some of this Fox content that has a built-in audience base.
Yeah, and also it's kind of, I don't think a lot of people sometimes realize how much content like 20th Television and ABC have been making for Disney Plus that are under, like National Treasure, I think was an ABC show. I think Turner and Hooch was 20th Television. There's all these different shows are being made by them, and maybe as Disney Plus is starting to pull back on making those originals, it's like we just don't need to be making as many of these. And I don't know, you could look at it and go, like, from Disney's point of view, going, wouldn't it not make more sense to use like something like Abbott Elementary or The Connors or something like that as your family shows rather than expensive, like maybe things like National Treasure or Willow, because it's just cheaper to make. It's a very interesting to see how all this is kind of coming together. So I think we've all been, this last 2-3, I mean, even under Chapek, it was still feeling like storming ahead. We just need content. We just need content. We just need content. But it does feel like Iger's gone, whoa, everybody, let's just stop spending a minute. Let's see how much we're making here.
And I think one of the other things which was mentioned by Iger is that it's important for each of the studios to have an identifiable identity. So you look at some of the ones that we were talking about before, and it's like Grey's Anatomy is an ABC show, but is there something about it that is distinctly ABC, or would it be the exact same show on Fox or on Freeform or something like that? And the answer to the question is no, but it's only in subtle ways. And keeping these different studios running gives them that option. So you can go, this is very distinctly a Disney show. It's a Star Wars, it's Marvel, it's Mickey Mouse. This is Disney. And that's very important to Disney, that the brand is associated with things. But they want to put out other shows like Fleishman Is In Trouble or Welcome to Chippendales and stuff. And having the FX brand that they can throw those under, which are very adult. And you can go, this is an FX show because it's adult. Yeah. It deals with adult topics.
Yeah. I was going to say, actually, like, if you look at that from a point of view of the FX shows, what they tend to do with a lot of those shows is you look at the logo of the show. Whenever they put up an image, they will put the name of the show on and the FX logo. And instantly that FX logo differentiates it. It makes it look like, oh, okay, that's for adults. That's not a for kids. FX does not make kids content. It makes high quality content for adults. And, Bob Iger even mentioned FX by name. I don't think FX is going anywhere. That is like they know that they're on, that is a premium, high quality network to make stuff. The problem is like the 20th Television and the ABC shows. There is no distinction. I could pull out 15 shows now that have been made by either of them and just do a quiz, and we'd probably fail because there's no indistinguishable stuff between the two of them. I think the same thing maybe goes like with Freeform. I think some of the stuff they've been putting out, I don't think that's going to last much longer. But I feel like we might see, I don't know, it's like, do they have to do that same thing with 20th Television or ABC? I again think they could merge at some point where you have How I Met Your Father, but there's a little logo just ahead of it, just to kind of start distinguishing, like they do like they've been doing with the movies a little bit more.
And that's what we talk about when we mean or that's what we mean when we say branding. You look at the FX logo, what the brand is, what it is you're looking at. And as you said, Fox, ABC, NBC, CBS, all the TNT, it doesn't matter. You're functionally getting the same programming, just with a different studio behind it. But there's nothing that really says, this is a Fox show, this is an ABC show. If you picked Grey's Anatomy up and you put it onto CBS, nothing changes. No, absolutely nothing changes.
So I think we are going to just see a drastic slowdown. I'm quite happy with curated. I think that might be better. I think we might see I won't be at all surprised if we see more of this like limited series situation rather than long running shows. I think we're going to see a lot of this stuff being released on ABC and FX. Also, he mentioned about general entertainment with the international originals. I think we're going to see a big drop off in the amount of originals being created internationally, which is a shame. It feels like we've not really fully got up to it. There is a kind of an issue in some of the countries where they do need to be creating content because of like legal reasons. So they're still going to have to make some. But I mean, you look at the amount of shows coming out of Korea, maybe they feel like they've reached like Korea's not growing any more than it was. And, you know, because there seems to be like multiple shows coming out of there almost weekly. Maybe they're going to look at doing that. Maybe as well in India, they might start cutting back in stuff on them. But yeah, what do you think about all the original stuff from internationally?
I'm disappointed that they're cutting back because this has actually been one of the things that I continue to look forward to are seeing the international releases. They don't always click with us. I'm thinking of like Snowdrop or things like that, which came out of Korea, which just didn't click. But it's great seeing that different perspective. Great seeing content that you wouldn't normally see. It comes from a very different background of creative energy and things like that. So I'm disappointed, but I also kind of understand where he's coming from. I have to expect that a lot of these international shows are not performing as well as domestic shows because people just aren't willing to take a risk. And pointing out something for you specifically, there's a lot of people who don't like reading subtitles and they don't have the energy or the money to dub everything that comes across. And you load up a show and it's in French and there's subtitles and there's no option for English. A lot of people are just going to turn it off.
I had an email this morning from a viewer and like saying, you know, like it was based on the lines of this new show. It's in Spanish. There was subtitles. Why are we getting it? It's like it's a global release. It's just, but it's like that idea of the fact that it's like, well, they were expecting it, and it's that kind of weird thing of we see it a lot here. I would imagine we might see them. You know, they might get buried quicker off the front pages and stuff. You would think from the algorithm point of view, where it would maybe point out the fact of, yeah, you've not watched any shows from Korea, so we're going to stop recommending you. The trouble is the Disney Plus app doesn't have an algorithm. There isn't. The algorithm there isn't like anything like Netflix's system.
Oh, well, Netflix's algorithm is smoke and mirrors anyway.
Yeah.
This is true of all the platforms. Honestly, they give you the illusion that your viewing habits and such play into the algorithm, and it might like a very, very little bit. But honestly, the algorithm is really just, this is a show we spent a lot of money on and we want people to watch it. So we think that you might enjoy it because we spent a lot of money on it. Please watch the show, make our investment worthwhile.
There's an element of them needing to curate, you know, to put out that list when you log on to Disney Plus, that here are some things that we would like you to watch that we've, you know, we spent a lot of money on, but these. And it makes sense to use the hero banner and to use like a recommended banner and stuff. And, you know, it makes sense to do that. But also it makes sense sometimes for some of this stuff just to disappear. I mean, on Disney Plus here in the UK, you click on the originals. And I think in the US, there's now like an international tab of just full of... And it makes sense to separate them out a little bit because if you're not interested in them, then, you know, they are separated. I think we're going to see more of this. We are still going to see them. But I feel like we might not see as many, and I wouldn't be too surprised if they do like what they're going to be doing maybe with Australia and in the UK and Canada. So they'll just make more shows for everybody in these countries to get around the laws. You know, they've got a big studio in Sydney. They've got a big studio place here in London, England. They're making shows and stuff here, and they can kind of use that and kind of go, oh yeah. Well, that whole series is made here in the UK or made in Australia. And maybe just, I think it also seems to be going the other way. If it's cheaper just for them just to pay the government a big chunk of money than actually have the costs of making all this content.
I mean, there is that too, where keep in mind that a fine to a company like this is just a business expense. So if they look at it and go, well, England is going to fine us if we don't make enough shows in England, but it's going to cost us more to make the shows than the fine would cost us. We'll just pay the fine.
I also think what seems to be a lot of them seem to be doing is some countries, it's more like, so of all the money that, say like all the subscriber numbers from Australia, Let's say like, say there's 1 million of them. I don't know. I'm just pulling a number out of my butt. So there we got that on there. So, and then go, right, you have to give us 10% of that towards local content. Okay, so here's, $100,000. It's cheaper than making a show. And that's the way of keeping the entertainment stuff going. So I think we are going to see less. Some of this stuff is probably going to take a while to kick in. I think we're still going to see Korean shows, but we maybe won't be seeing as many of them as frequently as possible because they are going to be cutting back for sure. I think that's just it.
Well, and specifically for Korean shows, I think they saw the success that Netflix was having with shows like Kingdom and Squid Games and so on. And they were just like, well, let's get Korean shows without actually vetting these are like the really good Korean shows, or maybe Netflix had already snatched them up. But so by the time they get to the Korean shows, they're pulling ones that aren't necessarily going to have the same commercial value as like Squid Games did.
Yeah, I think it's like, to me, I look at it like with Japan. It's like the anime stuff has probably got a much broader scope to be able to be animation's much easier for them to dub and do subtitles for than a live action show. So there's benefits and stuff for all of this.
And also, when you're talking about an audience that wants to watch these shows, especially anime in particular, there's already an expectation of subtitles or something like that. In fact, I believe anime fans will get into very heated arguments about dubs versus subs and so on.
Yeah.
So if you're bringing anime over, you can just kind of, it's subtitled because the audience already expects that. And given the amount of it that's coming out of Japan, they also can be a little bit more selective in what they pick, because I know Bleach was a very popular one, a franchise going back to when I was younger. Spy Family, of course, is a very popular one, and so on. So they can actually pick up those ones that anime fans really, really, really want to grab, as opposed to perhaps the Korean ones where they're just kind of grabbing whatever's available.
Yeah.
Sorry, my cat really wants the camera.
Well, my little dog's doing the same thing. I want to be on camera too. But also with films, we're going to see more of a push now to theatrical films, theatrical releases. I think we're going to be seeing a lot less straight to streaming films to make more money. General entertainment, again, falls under the 20th century. I think we might see less. I don't know if we'll see as much from Searchlight. Searchlight is probably the easy one because it's a bit cheaper. But 20th century, I mean, they've had an amazing hit with Avatar, but they've really not been able to utilize. It feels that kind of weird thing, like 20th century. It didn't really feel like it even got going properly till like November last year,
right?
Because we were just having the leftovers scraps that were left over from the year before, and we had like the menu, and then we had like Avatar, and it's like finally got some decent stuff from it.
And there are other franchises that we really haven't seen. We got Prey, which is from the Predator franchise, and that was really, really good and it generated a lot of buzz. But there's nothing really imminently coming from that franchise. We've got an Aliens show in the works. I don't remember when that's supposed to be.
They still even started filming. They just wrapped the new Planet of the Apes film last week.
And those are both special effects heavy shows / movies. So we're not going to see them for a while. But when we do, those are ones where you can go, this is a Fox property. This is they got it from the acquisition, and this is them starting to bring in those franchises that are what they really wanted out of this. And
I also think now like the HBO deal with the US means they're more free to a bit more selective with what they do with films. I think going forward we are going to see just more theatrical. Maybe have less 20th. I don't know if we'll have as many as we. The trouble is they did seem to be just churning out like some of the cheap franchise stuff for Disney Plus and not necessarily Hulu, but some of the things like I think Cheaper by the Dozen was one of theirs. But they kind of like it was like there's a few films that they released and you're going, this is just like not really at that top peak level. It was just
but
quick turnaround.
But again, these were ones that they needed during the content drought. These were ones that they were originally going to be much bigger deals, but COVID kind of got in the way of things and they got repurposed for these other things. And who knows how things would have been if theaters hadn't been shut down for 2 years and so on. But they were, and so things got changed. And a lot of these movies, of course, keep in mind, Cheaper by the Dozen or whatever, could have been significantly better movies, but shooting schedules were screwed up. They couldn't do reshoots. They couldn't do rewrites. The special effects were affected because the tools that you have at the office versus the tools you have at home aren't the same, and they might have been a little hampered by that and so on. So what we got and what they wanted to make were probably very, very different things.
I think we're going to see probably 20th Century become a little bit more selective in what they're doing. Maybe bigger titles, but less of them. And I feel like the television might kind of slide in it. So there's a lot of different things there to kind of take away. But I think in a whole, it almost feels like Bob Iger is, I wouldn't say he's walking back from buying 20th Century Studios, but it feels a bit like, I brought this stuff, but they never really were able to use it. National Geographic got quickly whipped over to Disney Plus, and that seems to that fitted in like a nice bit of jigsaw puzzle, didn't it? It just fitted straight in. But again, I think it's the Hulu situation. I think that's just this general problem of they've not been able to utilize the movies, they've not been able to utilize their shows because of all the problems in the US with existing rights.
That, and going back to identity, when you're talking about Fox, you want to purchase Fox properties, you want these things that Fox has, but there's nothing that's particularly identifiably Fox about them. They have the Aliens franchise, they have the Predator franchise, Planet of the Apes, and plenty of other ones that you'd recognize, but you don't necessarily go, oh, if I want to watch Predator, I better watch Fox. That's not how it works. Most people don't even know what companies are making most films. How many times have you seen the question, why isn't Batman in the Avengers? It's like, well, that's a completely different company. He's owned by DC, which is Warner Brothers. And people are like, okay, sure, that doesn't make any sense to me. Or as we see frequently, Pixar and Disney Animation just being merged into one giant thing. Man, that Pixar movie, Strange Worlds, didn't do very well. It's like, that's not Pixar. That's Disney. Most people don't differentiate. They don't have to. No. I'm not saying they should. It's useless information for most people. The point being is that there are nuance when you're talking about these things, and sometimes it matters and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in the next couple of months and stuff. I feel like almost like Iger's like he's basically just having to come back, and he's having to clear up from after the pandemic and buying Fox. It's such a messy way of doing it. Right, so that is that's it on there. So we've got a couple of quick things I want to quick talk about. This past week, Fleishman in Trouble came out here in the UK. FX show came out in the US back in November. It was also on Disney Plus in Canada and Australia at the same time. But Disney Plus here in the UK decided that no, we're going to hold on to it for Europe, and we're going to wait for 2 months. And they released it. They released all episodes at once rather than doing weekly. I managed 2 episodes, and it's just like, the first episode, my wife dropped out because she's like, oh, this is rubbish. Second episode, I thought I'll give it another episode, and I was just like, oh, this is like just 2 episodes of him just running around trying to find his wife, and I was like, I really don't care if she's dead in a ditch. It just didn't really. It just like I just don't care. I didn't really like the characters. I didn't like the friends. I just didn't like any of them.
Yeah, you made it longer than I did. I made it maybe not even halfway through the first episode. I got to the part where he's talking to his understudies at the hospital, and they're explaining Tinder to him because he just divorced, and she's the woman's going like, oh, this in the picture indicates that she's interested in these kind of things, like adult things that she's interested in. I'm just like, I absolutely don't even remotely care about this. I don't like you as a character, talking about Fleischman himself or Jesse Eisenberg, and I was like, I'm done. I can't.
Even this when they're all talking and stuff, it just doesn't. It just didn't feel like real people talking. It was just like monologues. I don't know. They really just did not click. So I dropped that after the second episode. I was like, I won't be.
I didn't like the narrator. Honestly, I think that was the major thing for me. It's like, I don't have an issue one way or another with a narrator in movies or shows. I think it can work in certain situations, but the tone that they used with this narrator just, it felt so awkward and out of place.
But she's like the friend that comes in later on. But it was also in some way, it was so like vulgar to the point. It was like, why are you including it? You're including it because you can, rather than because it needs. I don't know. It was just a little bit like it just. Some of it was just like we just didn't need that bit or that scene. It was just unnecessary.
Well, the one that got to me is he's making breakfast for his kids, and the girl is not happy with anything. You know, her parents are getting through a divorce. It's very traumatic, and so she's acting out. And so she's being very passive aggressive in her responses. And then the show is adding in the narrator going, "Oh, well, what she really means is you effing idiot," and adding it to the end of every sentence, like, you don't need that. The passive aggressiveness is coming through just fine. I understand that she's upset. You don't need to throw that in. It's like you said, they're just doing it because they can.
It got to the point of like, this is just like, you know, this constant, like there was sex and it's like, did we need? Does it help the show? No, it just you know, it's just because you can do it. It's like it did lost its meaning because it was happening. It was just it just wasn't a show for me. And I like this. Most of the FX shows recently I've been enjoying, but that one just missed the mark. Shifting gears completely, we also had we had Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. So this one's coming out in the UK on the 1st of March. Came out back in the US about last week, I think it was. What did you think of this show?
I actually enjoyed this. I actually enjoyed this much more than I was expecting, probably because they're not little interludes with someone going, "You effing idiot" in the background. Having said that, you know, it's not going to be for everyone, and it's definitely skewing towards a younger audience. So not a must go and see, but it is enjoyable, and I think it will find an audience for people who.
I think this is a great show for younger Marvel fans. I'll be honest, it wasn't for me. I didn't like it. It was too young. It kind of felt like somewhere just after like Marvel Squad build. I just like Suicide. I didn't like the tone, but because it's like the Saturday morning shows, you know, like the Spider-Man's. It's still got that kind of core Saturday morning cartoon feel of they got a story. It's a bit simple and all the rest of it, but it was watchable. This was like, oh no, this feels like a slightly just north of Disney Junior, and just it's very. But the trouble is, there is a key point of this is a great show for that audience that's maybe not quite ready for the MCU, and this will bring them in. It's definitely, it's bright, it's colorful, it's very unique. I can see it's got a place, but it just wasn't for me.
I'd agree. I probably won't finish out the series, but I did like it. I would recommend it to anyone with younger children who aren't ready for, you know, X-Men 97 or things like that. The second episode did bother me a little bit, though. I don't think you watched that one. But
I did the one and was like, that's me tapping out.
the second one is a bullying episode where she is getting bullied by this online troll.
Yeah.
And they're bringing out the usual line of, well, if you just ignore the troll, if you don't give the bully ammunition, they'll just fade away and get, you know, sucked into themselves, because bullies can't work if you don't react to them. It's like, that's not even remotely true, and that's terrible advice, because internet trolls, bullies, whatever, they don't care. They just want to make you feel bad. And there is nothing about that. So I'm not a fan of that.
It sounds a bit like one of those things of like, that idea of what you're saying worked 20 years ago. Doesn't
it
work.
I don't think it even worked 20 years ago, to be honest.
No. Well, but, my dad was always along the lines of just punch the kid and beat him up, and that was and that's why we had to get pulled in and go, you beat him. Like, it was a bully. Yeah, well, it didn't help with me being twice their size and a big fan of pro wrestling. It didn't really.
But especially in America, where we have I don't remember the exact term for it, but where both sides will get punished if anything happens at all. So if you're going to get bullied and you're going to get punished for it, or you're going to retaliate and get punished for it, you might as well just retaliate, even if you lose the fight. And so this is not specific to this show. I think, this is a common refrain in kids shows about bullying is, don't give the bully your attention and they'll just go away. We need to drop that narrative entirely. It doesn't work. So that's not a problem with this specific show. It's a common thing.
I think again, I think there's a difference between a bully at school that you have to see day in and day out, and then an online troll, which you're never going to hear from or see from. You block them, and most of the time that can sort. But if you've got to go to school with them the next day, it doesn't. That system doesn't work. So It's a very, very tricky, but it's good that they are tackling those kind of issues, because that's what it's where kids pick up stuff. That's what they do. Right. Yeah.
So ultimately, it'll be a good show for kids.
Yeah.
And it's well produced. There's good acting, good voice work. It's a well put together show, but it's not going to be for adult audiences. That's it. If you have a younger kid and you want to watch shows with your kid, it'll be fine. You're not going to be entirely just like, my brain is slowly melting out of my ears as this drivel is on screen. It's not high quality like Bluey or something like that, but you'll be fine watching this with your kid.
That's cool. Next week we'll be talking about the first episode of the second season, or the third season of The Mandalorian, and other bits and pieces of news. But on that note, guys, thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you guys next week. Later. Thank you very much for watching this video. Make sure you go check us out over at whatsondisneyplus.com. Like, follow, and subscribe. Also, a huge thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon and also on our YouTube channel memberships. And I shall see you guys in another video. Laters.